Hey there. So I wanted to go over how to clean my Melasty milk machine. So I'm just going to caveat this whole thing by saying this is how I clean my machine. The reason I say that is I do it without the chemicals provided. I do that very intentionally. We try to keep things as natural as possible. We don't use the chemicals. We use natural dish soap and also just white vinegar along with water, obviously. But when we got the machine, there were specific chemicals provided. It's my understanding that, especially if you're selling the milk, there's specific ways that the FDA and whatnot requires certain things that you are required to use. I don't do that. Okay, so I just caveat this whole thing by this is what I do, and it has worked great for me. I've not had an issue with anything since I've started doing this process, and the milk has always been fantastic quality. So to get going, so we just finished, let's just say we just finished our milking. So normally I do this inside. Obviously I'm outside today because it's just a little bit easier, more space, etc. But what I'll do is, first off, is make sure that you've cleaned up anything on the machine after milking. It's really easy to get milk on this thing when you're in the process of with the claw and all the rest of it. Just so make sure that everything is looking good there. This thing does rust, especially the compressor part down at the bottom, so make sure that's wiped down. The second thing is I have a 2 bucket system. So here I have got about 110-degree water. So your initial rinse is just going to be for a couple seconds, and what that's going to do is it's going to take the milk out of the line. And if you scorch the line with milk in it, you'll actually burn the fat, the fat globules to the line itself, and you'll end up, either you got to do a thorough cleaning or you'll ruin your hose. So you never want to do too hot of water through the line. So you always want a warm water. I do between 100 and 110 degrees. The second one I have here is this is a hot soapy bucket. So what I personally do is I have a tea kettle on the stove, and I will start it, and I start it while I'm pouring the milk, so that way it's ready about the time I'm ready to clean it, because you always want to empty the milk out first. Get the milk in the fridge ASAP. The cleaning happens second. And I always, sorry, I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but I always make sure that I clean the milk machine quickly after I pour the milk. The reason is I don't want milk sitting in the hose for a long time or in the bucket. It's not good for it. So again, warm water, and then I've got a hot soapy bucket here. I mix boiling water with as hot as my sink can get, and I'm trying to get to the 160, 170 degree range. So it's hot soapy water. And so what I do then, and I'll just walk this through with you. This is just the after milk cleaning. There's a deeper clean I'll show you here in a second. But what I'll do is I'll do a couple seconds here. I'll suck this whole bucket and a couple more seconds in the hot water. And what you're looking for is you don't want to overfill your container. Obviously, I've only got a 2.5 gallon bucket here, so it's not going to take much. If you've got a larger bucket, obviously you're going to need more than what I've got. But you don't want to overfill it, because the water will actually start sucking into the tube and then into your compressor. And there is a little relief valve at the very bottom, you'll see, but you don't want that to have to be used. You want to keep as much water out of the inside of your machine as possible for obvious reasons such as rust. So I'm going to go ahead and fire this up and walk you through it. When you're starting this thing, make sure that the lid is on straight. This is honestly probably the weakest part of a Melasty machine that I can think of, and if that's the weakest part, it's not that bad of a machine, right? But it's the lid, because the reason is the lid's off center at all, it'll actually get sucked into the machine. So make sure you're nice and center on the machine. I've also pulled up on my stop, so again, I'm gonna have the vacuum from here to the machine going. All right, so my pressure is good. I've got the vacuum. I'm gonna do a couple seconds here. Stop it. I'm gonna suck this bucket. This is the hot soapy bucket. I'll bounce it up and down a couple times so I get the suds going around. And then I'll rinse. And again, at this point, I'm checking, making sure that I'm not sucking milk into the top here. That's good. I'll take it off a little. Turn it off, and at this point, obviously I'm not inside where I normally do this. Release the pressure. what I'll do is I actually have a hook, and I take this and I set it up on the hook up high. And the reason is that allows all of the fluid, all of the water, as much as it can, to get out of the center of the hose. So what you'll see is that, you know, no matter how hard you try it, there's still some water that's going to be in this hose. And my solution to that is I try to drain as much as I can when I'm cleaning it. But then also what I'll do is I'll hang it up high so it drains out, and then I actually rinse the whole system out with a fresh, just warm water, fresh warm water, before I actually do the milking. So I've already got clean. All that's doing is just making sure that any water that was sitting in there is then, you know, replaced by fresh new water, and you dump the bucket out. So at this point, obviously, if it's just the end of a regular milk day, what I'll do is I'll detach these. I'm just going to set them over this for now. Again, I've got a hook inside, and so now you've got your lid. You'll take your water, dump it out. I always make sure I rinse it out. You know, when we're doing twice a day milking, I'll just rinse it out, make sure I dry it off. In the morning, in the evening, I actually take a wand and I soap the inside and the outside, dry it off. But every time I use this thing, this lid gets a ton of fluid inside of it. So I'll peel back the lid. So this thing comes apart, and then I'll wash the whole thing. This ball actually comes out as well. I'll wash these 3 pieces separately. I'll let them dry, and then I'll put them back together before I use it again next. So I always wash the lid every time with soap and water. If you're doing twice a day, I'll just rinse the bucket. If you're doing once a day, then I would just make sure you wash the whole thing with water and soap. So that's the daily basis. Now let's talk about the deep clean. So if you're not doing more than that on a regular basis, then you're not cleaning the whole thing properly. And I do it about once a week. Sometimes I'll do it more, because this claw can see a lot of action. So meaning, like, you know, it's obviously in an area where the cows can kick and all the rest of it. And if something happens, I'll end up cleaning the claw more frequently. But this claw itself needs to get cleaned. And so what this whole thing actually comes apart, which is pretty cool. So if you untwist this, just unscrew this guy, this pops off. Okay, so now you've got 2 pieces. The piece that I found, and I haven't seen really other people talk about it, is actually this gasket. So this gasket here pops out, and this thing can stink. So make sure that you're washing this gasket. In fact, right now I see some milky-ish water on the inside of this gasket. So this thing does not rinse out well. Make sure you clean this thing. I clean this more frequently than I clean the rest of it, than the suction cups themselves. So I'm just going to set this to the side because I don't need it right now. So you take this off, and you can actually take the whole thing apart, at least most of it apart for you. Set the claw here, and then I take this off. So be careful here. This is really strong plastic, but it's not unbreakable plastic. And you want to kind of rock back and forth. For any of these hoses you're taking off, you're going to rock back and forth. I know when I first got my machine, it was just so difficult to take these hoses off. And it's a good thing, because you need the suction. But to do it, you kind of want to rock back and forth to take the hoses off. And you should be able to get them off if you're patient and if you're not, pulling too hard. The second piece, and I'm just going to take one of them off for you, is the claw itself. So I'll take the pulsator off, and so now I've got just the claw. And you'll see, you're not going to see it in the video, but if you've got the machine, you can tell there's a natural 45-degree angle here. I'll take my fingers and I'll pull with that, and I do it gently, and then that pops off, and then these guys pull off, and so you're going to end up taking all of these off. So you want to take all of these off, and you want to get a pipe cleaner. There was one that was included in my kit. But you want to get a pipe cleaner, you want to get inside there, you'll want to get like a water bottle cleaner, you know, like one of the long skinny ones. Get in here, wash the whole outside with soap and water. The catch here, though, I've noticed, is be careful of the pulsator. So the pulsator actually runs out into the sides. There's a lining here. The pulsator sucks air on the outside of the lining, and this is obviously metal. So I never submerge. You can actually take this off. You can actually take this off. I'm not going to right now because they're a pain in the butt to get on. You can actually take this off, and you'll see there's a little hose here. If water gets in here, it's really hard to get it out. It's not impossible, but it's really hard to get it out. So when I'm cleaning these, I leave this on. I'll soap the tube itself, but never allow water to go into the black piece if you can at all help it, because it'll get into here. Now, it's my understanding that this itself, this liner, can actually come off too. So you could actually just come down to just a metal piece of tubing here. I've not done that yet. You know, I know that you have to replace these liners every once in a while. So far, this thing has been holding up fantastically, and again, I've been using it really heavily for several months now. So that's what I do for the regular cleaning. Another option is if you want to soak the hose. So you get like a 5-gallon pot, put a lot of soapy water in it. You're going to actually soak the hose. Then when you pull it out, you know, rinse it as best you can in the sink, but then also run some fresh water through it. You know, you're never going to get too much water running through this thing, which is great. So it's not complicated, but there's a lot of pieces. Anywhere where the milk is going to touch, you want to make sure you're cleaning. You really want to make sure you're smelling too. So just put your your nose up to the teat cups or into the hose, into the bucket, and again that gasket, and smell it. And if it smells rancid, then it probably is rancid and you should wash it. All right, so thank you. Hope you liked the video. Make sure you like and subscribe.